Hello and welcome to another episode of the Practical Permaculture podcast. I am your host, Elise Gallagher. Second week of school holidays, things are manic. We're going on holidays, so this has all been pre-recorded. We're busy trying to clean the house, take out the bins, the compost, get packed, get everything organized, load the kids onto a plane and head to Adelaide to see some family. So that will be lovely to spend some time down there with them, relaxing and connecting. This week I speak to Jax. So he was recommended to me by a fellow Permie. She told me about him and I kind of followed his page for a little while and then I reached out to interview him. His Instagram is called Proudfoot.foodforest. He is into Syntropic, so he's growing some Syntropic food forests on his land. He's very interested in the mythology of plants and tools and fruits and kind of delves into the history behind them and back to Roman times. He's kind of looking, and the way he thinks about things and the way he sees his journey is really interesting. And he was such an amazing person to chat to, just so engaging and so, I don't know, he's just a different kind of person, and I love that about him. Sorry, excuse the kids in the background. Like I said, it's school holidays. His Instagram is full of really cool content. It's really interesting. So go and have a follow. He's super lovely. I'm sure if you have any questions, you can reach out to him. But I just thoroughly enjoyed my chat with him, and I'd love to meet him in real life and just kind of hang and have a look at what he's doing, because it all just seems really, really cool. So a quick word from this season's sponsor, and then we'll jump straight into the episode. Our gardens and bodies are made up of water, but did you know what is in yours? If you're like me, you're probably thinking that it's time to check the tank. And on top of that, there's modern contamination of PFAS, chlorine, and other chemicals that are linked to real health impacts. Aussie-based mywaterscore.com.au has made it possible to get real lab results from NATA certified labs straight from your mailbox. Whether you're on tank, bore, or mains, it's a simple mail to lab kit that gives you clear results for bacteria, PFAS, heavy metals, and more. It's all explained in plain English. Use the code PRACTICAL to get a discount off your first test at mywaterscore.com.au. Welcome to the Practical Permaculture Podcast, your weekly dose of gardening, intentional living, and all things permaculture, served with a side of fun and plenty of great conversations. I'm your host, Elise, and together we'll dig into practical tips, chat with experts, and explore ways to cultivate a more abundant, sustainable life. Let's get growing. Hello and welcome, Jax. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
That's good. So, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your context?
Oh, my context and myself. Well, I'm 29 and my dream in the last, I guess, couple of years has been to create a syntropic food forest. There's a whole bunch of different variables that got me to this point, but right now it's just been an obsession with wanting to create an edible forest system, and through that it's just been creating content, talking about it with everyone who dares to listen, and that's kind of been my main focus at the moment. And it's kind of gotten me to this point where I want to just continue pushing this amazing form of gardening, which is syntropic food forestry. And that's kind of me in a nutshell at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And so how did you first come across it? As something that you were brought up with, or did you learn about it in some other way?
It depends how far back we want to go. I have a Italian heritage and French heritage, and both are lovers of growing food. And so that I feel like is implanted in me, in my DNA somewhere. And I love like old school tools and getting in there, like on the land at the moment. I love using the scythe, and I still use my non-Nors tools. Like they're still the best tools that I have. And then really, I mean, I could pull it back to growing up and wearing hobbit capes and running around the bush. Like
Yeah.
just a love for being wild has
Yeah.
definitely been a focus. And then when I kind of finished school and you're like, what do? You can't, you need some sort of career to follow. I ended up choosing uh, bush regeneration,
Oh,
forest
cool.
regeneration. And that's what I'm currently working at the moment in conservation.
Cool.
And that's really set me on a path to falling in love with forests.
Yeah.
And then that combination of that fantasy, the forest, and then growing food kind of fell in place when I learned about food forests. Very
Yeah.
simple term. I mean, it originated with permaculture.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is one of the main entryways for most people as they hear permaculture and they go, oh, that's interesting. And I
Mm.
remember doing a course, but then when I saw food forests, permaculture kind of just went out the window because I was like, that is cool. And
Yeah.
I remember them being like, food forest is like zone 5 or something, it's far away from the house. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, 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 I want to be in the forest. Like my obsession was like, I want to be encapsulated in this
Part of the forest.
edible Garden of Eden. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the snowball effect
Yeah.
that got me here.
Yeah, amazing. We have an acre and a half, so we're just
Mm.
establishing our land at the moment. So on one side, I'm doing like a linear food forest, like that's
Okay.
all natives integrated with some fruit, and then the bottom kind of understory is some things like asparagus, and then some edible weeds and things like that.
Mm.
So I'm slowly learning about it. I'm new to the whole concept, but yeah,
Yeah.
I find it fascinating.
It's really fun, and I feel like there is a lot of emphasis on your design and how you plant everything. But the more I've gotten into it, the more I've learnt to just let go of that intense,
Mm.
get your calculator out, get your calendar and your rubrics and just kind of managing it in the sky, which is what I've learned.
Yeah.
Just planting and seeing which characters want to participate and which characters don't. And
Yeah.
that is like nature speaking a language that you can follow along with. And when you
Yeah.
become really immersive with the food forest, you start to become the creature. You are the disturbance, you are this
Mm.
interactive animal
Yeah.
that is learning and observing and managing the forest. And so in my project, I walk around the streets. Um, I mean, like a bit of a weirdo, just wandering around collecting plants, seeing what's growing in people's backyards, going down to the most eroded, neglected pieces of land.
Mm.
Train tracks are a great one. Riversides are a great one, and collecting weeds.
Yeah.
They're there cultivating the soil already,
Mm-hmm.
um, and getting them and bringing them onto the land. And I know that they're already in this area, and they're cultivating the soil as we speak. So I use that, and
Yeah.
we just build and we build and we build. And
Yeah.
that obsession with just like finding what local plants work with their, it would take the label away, weed, native,
Yeah.
whatever, and using that to just cultivate for,
Mm.
whatever trees that you wish to have in the future, those climax
Yeah.
trees. It could be bringing back the red cedar in the mid north coast, or it could be a mango tree. You never know, but
Yeah.
you can utilize what's happening to create that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that thought. I find it tricky personally to let go because you're so, I think, when you start learning about gardening, especially if you learn it from certain books or TV programs, it is so regimented and it can be hard to let go. But the other
Mm.
thing I find hard is plant identification sometimes. When things pop up, I'm like, do I leave it? Do I pull it? If I
Mm.
leave it, is it going to affect the other plants that are there? And
Mm.
so I'm kind of stuck in that at the moment. I'm still very new to it and letting go and trying to I think as well, like balancing work and life and, having the time and finding the time and making time to be out there and observing so that I can learn more and I can, like you said, become more immersed in the garden and
Mhm.
become part of its journey rather than implementing a garden and being on the outside of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't, personally, I wouldn't worry about the names of the plants. I
Mm.
would be much more interested in what your observations of their function is.
Yeah.
That is so much more beneficial for the greater ecology than to be super fastidious with the name and the scientific name. It's my personal opinion because,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in conservation for a long time, and I remember when I first started, your pay would go up if you knew 30 weeds and 30 natives. This was when I first started.
Really?
Yeah, it was their
Wow.
rubric. And so, and I mean, that was maybe 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
But I would have much rather be tested on what is that weed trying to achieve, or
Mm.
why is it here? What is it about this area that is no longer intact with the native ecology that this weed has had to participate in the
Yeah.
restore of this
Yeah.
eroded bank? Or why is this native still here? Like, how is it so strong? Why is it so resilient? Um,
Mm.
because there's so much interface in this world at the moment with road edges and people's buildings, and
Yeah.
especially in
The
suburbia
edges.
farms.
Yeah.
And you just see these plants trying to find some sort of
Yeah.
grip and return nature,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's not the story that we just kind of go, oh, that's bad, that's good, or that's weed, that's native.
Hmm.
So you kind of be like, what is it trying to do here?
Yeah.
And that I'd be much interested to have that conversation with people who are in the regen world,
Yeah.
because it gives you appreciation of all plants
Totally.
instead
Yeah.
of the point a finger and blame
Yeah.
kind of
I
thing. Yeah.
feel like Europeans have it down. They don't kind of know what's a weed or don't care, I guess, what's a weed. And, they have things like horters where they'll go and collect bitter greens and things that we call weeds and they eat them and they utilize them and they know about their medicinal properties. We've really lost touch with that in Australia, I think.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there is that information out there, and we
Mm.
can get it, but it is for the weeds here in Australia that have come from overseas. I
Yeah.
think it'd be really amazing to see people highlight the native weeds. Like there's the scurvy weed, the commelina, which drives people crazy in their gardens because it's just goes like wild. But there's all these plants when you just pull them back to plant,
Yeah.
or living cell, whatever it might be, they have a role to play. There is a use for them. It might not
Mm.
be a use for you and I.
Yeah.
It might be a use for the bee. It might be a use for the soil.
Hmm.
But to get more of that knowledge out there would be amazing, to a point where it's not just um, look at this weed from Italy. It's this and this and this. But it's like, oh, this one is from Australia. Oh, and this one's from Italy. And they're working together and they work really well together. And
Yeah.
that would be the most beautiful thing to see. And my friend Alistair, who's taught me a lot in Syntropics, he has the most beautiful food forest. And I made a YouTube video walking through his forest and chatting with him.
Yeah.
He's so articulate and poetic in his approach, but it's just so beautiful to see a tree, like a willow tree, but
Yeah.
then next to it's Davidson plum, and
Yeah.
next to it is beautiful acacias, and it's just this incorporation of different cultures and
Mm.
different stories, different lineage, but all working together to create an ecosystem that has birds and lizards, and it's charming. It's beautiful stuff to see. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And so you're on the mid north coast. What are kind of your aims for your property there that you have?
Learn. It's been mainly to learn.
Yeah, cool.
I just when you I mean, I've managed community gardens through my
Hmm.
work, and I've worked in lots of conservation, and I've helped people install food forests, But for me, I wanted my own space to watch it myself
Yeah.
and to participate, because I'm very much a student. Like I don't think I think I'd need to be an elf from Lord of the Rings to be able to encapsulate the full power of a forest evolving over time.
Yeah.
But it's so powerful to be able to put a plant in the ground and to know that it's not going to get ripped out by your neighbor or
Mm-hmm.
someone else, or there's a ranger's going to come and pull it out, or someone's going to mow over it. It's cool to know that you are putting this tree here intentionally,
Yeah.
and managing a land evolving from grass to something way more complex. So that was a massive motivation. And as well, I mean, another motivation is I've always wanted to live like a hobbit, just in a nice little peaceful
Yeah.
town with a beautiful community of people who grow and don't have to wear shoes
Yeah.
and just be very happy. So that's a massive motivation too. But the just being able to plant a tree and to watch it fulfill
Mm.
its life's purpose, and you just get to be a steward of that, is motivating enough.
Oh, I love that perspective because I think so many times we go in with the purpose or intention of, being self sufficient or, having these ideals, but to flip it around and just to be, like you said, a steward and learn and observe, that's so refreshing because I think we're just so focused on the end game sometimes or the outcome of what we're doing. So I think it's really inspiring that you think like that and that you share that with everybody.
Yeah, you got that's the basis of our existence. We've got to just continue to learn and
Mm.
enjoy, because you come across terms like master plan, and you come across these these dreams that we're constantly striving towards.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in the same. I catch myself in the future constantly. But what's the point of being in the future when there's so much story that happens before you start
Mm.
harvesting the nuts of the macadamia, right?
Yeah.
There's so much more story there. There's, lettuces, early, there's raspberries, there's blueberries, there's pear trees, avocado, and then after 7 years, you get the macadamia. And that's
Yeah.
something about Syntropic that also weaves into that, enjoying the process of the
Hmm.
creation of the forest. And that's something that I believe is very lost in a lot of the conservation work I do now, is that they'll plant the primary tree, they'll plant the eucalyptus tree, or and
Hmm.
then they go hands up, hands back, step back. We just manage the eucalyptus tree, the constant grasses, and you got to come and make sure that that
Hmm.
tree's growing. You're missing the whole successional story of a forest. You're just plunking a tree in the middle of grass and saying, grow, instead of being like, what happens next? What
Yeah.
animal grazes that grass to create the disturbance and the opportunity for another plant like a lantana or something to create a space? And then, a bush regenitor comes and knocks it down, and then there's another space for an acacia. And then, there's a whole story that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to just be so fixed on the master plan
Hmm.
is an injustice to the whole, the whole complex, whole macroorganism of the thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Very cool. At the back of our block, we kind of haven't touched it much because we're just
mm,
focusing on building a house at the moment. That's our kind of, we want
beautiful.
to get a bigger space to be in. We're in a tiny home with two dogs, two kids, two adults. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, the back of our block, I've been really amazed watching it because we haven't really touched it. I mean, we drive over it to drop mulch off and to kind of stockpile things. And the things that are popping up, my favorite plant in the entire world is the Hardenberg. Yeah, I just love it so much. And it's popping up everywhere. And the places I've actually intentionally planted it, like on fences and at the front of the block, it's just died. It's not happy. and it's just popping up at the back everywhere. And we've just done a few orchards with some of my grandmother's figs, and they're popping up all underneath the figs, and they're just going crazy. It's just so beautiful to see. And these tiny little purple flowers. And so I've started, because we need to mow the back a bit in summer to keep the snakes away. And so I've started pegging out where all these things are, and I'm not letting my husband mow because I know where they all are, and I'm mowing around it all to try and let it establish and yeah, just see what happens, because it's so interesting to see at the back compared to where we have cleared at the front and what is popping up. And most of it's bare ground at the front because it got muddy and wet, and it rained for like 8-9 weeks up here. And now as the sun's coming out and it's drying, what has been popping up, and it's obviously what that patch needs, and kind of
Yeah.
leaving it to see what happens. And there's a lot of things like dandelions and things with tap roots that are breaking the soil up. And so yeah, it's just interesting to see it all kind of unfurl.
And that's the real emphasis on, looking at the plant and being like, why?
Yeah.
What are you doing here? Like, what's
Yeah.
your end goal? Because one thing that we forget is plants do see themselves out. And that's really interesting. Like in regen work, you will notice that plants will grow for a certain amount of time
Yeah.
and give and give and give, and then eventually give away to a plant that grows up for a longer lifespan, whether it's in the
Yeah.
canopy or XYZ.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting because you're like, you're here for a moment of time, and it's participating in bringing in insects. Maybe that's what it needs. You never know. And that is the
Yeah.
challenge, is to sit
Yeah.
there and be like, why are you here? Like, we wonder why thistle appears around, but I do believe it has a reason, because of the compaction from a lot of
Totally.
cattle. Maybe
Yeah.
that could be something. I mean, you could give out hundreds and hundreds of different observations, and I don't believe any of them is inherently wrong and all bad or good. It's just that observation of being like, oh, okay, the thistle is showing up, and maybe the spikes mean back off. Maybe it's time this soil needs to be left and naturally tilled by the earth.
Yeah.
These are the cool fantasy stories we can add, and just without putting any too much language on the plant.
Yeah.
But it's really fun to be able to see that kind of unfold. And I've tried my best to leave this thistle on my property, and another idea came to me. I was like, thistle, it's very much like artichoke.
Yeah.
So I started planting artichoke, and artichoke does really well on my
Interesting.
property. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. So
Yeah.
I've got rows of artichokes in pots out there that my girlfriend and I are currently put in for seed.
Cool.
And that's going to go in spring, because it's something that the land seems to respond to, that kind of long taproot. They're very similar in their growth.
Yeah.
Just the artichoke is not spiky, which is a little bit nicer.
And so you spoke about fantasy just then. On your Instagram profile, you have mythology of plants, tools, and fruits. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I've fallen in love a lot with mythology and how that connected with the gods, and how that connected with agriculture. Especially, I'm in the Roman mythology world, Greek mythology world at the moment.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. Like, it's just fascinating how they're so intact with nature, that they have gods that participate in their role with nature too. Like, I was learning about, what videos? The scythe, and oh gosh, you put me on the spot here. I can't remember the videos I've done,
There
but
was
they
one about a
all.
fig I saw on your
There's
Instagram.
fig, yeah,
Yeah.
which is a lot to do with women's fertility and resilience, and these beautiful connections with culture, which
Yeah.
I feel like, as an Aussie living in Australia, our connection with plants, I don't know, it's not brought up enough when I was a kid or at school. You know what I mean? There was like,
Totally.
the wattle or something, or it
Yeah.
was very base level. Whereas obviously Indigenous people of Australia, they incorporate, there's folklore or
Mm-hmm.
fantasy or whatever word you want to link to it
Yeah.
with native plants. And
Yeah.
it's the same over in Italy, but I found mythology was the most interesting for me because it was a part of me, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
culture, it's beautiful. And so I just started to make a few different videos, and it's amazing what you can find on the internet. And it's
Yeah.
essentially just deep diving all these interesting articles and stuff. And one that I would like to make is the Bay the laurel tree, and how
Mm-hmm.
the after coming back from battles and they were victorious, they would wear the laurel
Yeah, the
tree.
crowns.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's interesting. And then you start to see that how that plant came along
Yeah.
in the journey of humans and how it stuck around, and maybe it
Mm.
knew what it was doing, and maybe it just got picked and it was like, oh, this one's great,
Mm.
So I found that just in my own time researching, and kind of just brought me into it. And obviously my love for fantasy is deep in, Lord of the Rings or whatever it might be. But yeah, to find that here on this world we are now, like that is cool. And it adds a different layer to just gardening. It
Mm.
adds a different layer to just syntropic farming. It adds
Yeah.
character, personality, realm, feeling. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that. That
Mm.
to add fantasy to our everyday life
Yeah.
is so much fun. It's so
Yeah.
much more rewarding than, to me, science or something where it's like, oh no, it's like this because of A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Much more interested in like, why is it like that? Oh, is it because, you could go into amazing. There's
Yeah.
so many people on Instagram creating some really beautiful folklores and stuff like
Yeah.
that, or,
Yeah.
talking about things that they learned when they were young. Or it's
Mm.
cool. It's just so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
I love a lot of the Celtic traditions because my
Yeah.
background's Croatian, so they kind of have that lineage, I guess. And I'm not so interested in the plant mythology, but more like seasonality and traditions and coming together and ceremony and rituals, things like that, that we've
Yeah.
just lost touch of completely. And you touched on like Indigenous culture in Australia, the fact that, we don't have autumn. Our trees don't really drop their leaves in autumn. Like, why do we have autumn in Australia? And then you look at Indigenous calendars and how there's all these bio indicators, when the whales come or the goannas come out or this tree's flowering or whatever it is. And then if we then tie in, traditions and, rituals around seasons, I just think it's so rich, and to mark our year by those kinds of things rather
Mm.
than a season that's marked on a calendar that's not really, for us here in Australia. I think it's lovely, and it's something we try and do with our kids. We celebrate solstice, and I spoke to somebody the other day on the podcast saying, oh, we just celebrated Halloween. And people were like, what, Halloween? Well, yeah, in Australia, like Halloween or that time of year is back when, in the earlier the year, not in October, like they celebrated in Northern Hemisphere. So yeah, I think we've totally lost touch with that. And I love, like you said, all these people online that you can learn all these things from. And I think it also ties into medicinal herbs and things like that, traditional uses of plants that we've really lost touch with. It's just, yeah, fascinating.
And story is at the basis of everything.
Mm.
The best way to teach, the best way to share, the best way to offer knowledge is story. Like, it's
Mm.
just so beautiful. And if we give story to plants and all those medicinals and all those ancient trees and all those magical beasts that used to live on the land before we did, like if we give story to that,
Mm.
it comes with you. Like, it comes
Yeah.
with you as you get older. Like, you may, I still know my 6 times tables because of a song.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
remember anything else. My maths has gone out the window.
Yeah.
But because of that song, it's in my head. And
Mm.
that's what I believe is the most beautiful thing about giving character to these
Mm.
plants, that instead of being like, oh, that's a weed, that's a native.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, that plant is from, South America, and they use it for this and this, and it has this beautiful. If we just had that knowledge in us, or someone came and shared that knowledge with us and built a little bit of fantasy about it, it would then be a part of this beautiful knowledge bank that would give so much more fantasy, so much more story to the world that is around us, and an appreciation for the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you do anything like moon planting? Did I see that on your page as well?
I have found that for some reason, I tend to just plant on the full moon.
Ah.
I don't know why it's happened, but every single time I seem to get my stuff together, which is, it's rare. But when you get all the plants together and you get out onto the property and you're ready to go, I look up and it's night time because I've been head in the soil for all day, and I'm like, oh, it's a full moon. And I'll be honest with you, it hasn't been intentional, but then it made me go, what is the story there? Like, why is that happening? And deep diving and learning, and I'm nowhere near an expert of it, but I'm very fascinated with the whole thing because, again, it's linked to culture and history deep beyond me, and I love that. And there's so many different cultures that will have different interpretations, but that's beautiful. Like that. There's obviously the scientific point to it, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
With the gravitational pull and the moving of water, and which you can easily find that information. But to go deeper is something very special. Whether it is Italian into the Roman culture, which is what I've been interested in as of late, or whatever country you're sitting on right now here in Australia, if you could find that knowledge, that would be amazing, very beneficial for you, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think our life just revolves around cycles, and whether you're aware of it or not, it happens. It's just becoming more aware.
That's it, right? It's like that motivation into laziness and that kind of like, I'm really motivated right now, and then you kind of go into a dip, and then you come back, and it's just like, but to recognize that can be quite hard. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And have you been to Italy?
Oh yeah. My brother ended up moving over to France and meeting a woman there, and now he's over there in France. So I get an excuse to go over to Europe when I can afford it. But yeah, so I do. I mean, 2 years ago, I had the amazing experience of going to where my nonna was born and grew up. My goodness, that is an emotional roller coaster of just like, this is wild. The roads are for horse and cart, which is hilarious. You're driving a car and you're just like, I hope no one's coming up the other side of the road. And then being in the cemetery and standing in front of your great grandfather, it's just like, whoa, it's a really crazy experience. But they worked hard, and one thing I do love about them, and one thing I do love about what I experienced when I was there, was their relationship with food was not certified organic or sustainable or regenerative, or it was
no
just
labels.
It's just, we grow to survive, and we're all growers. They don't walk around being like, I grow my own food.
It's just a part of their life. It's second nature too. They almost know what to do because they've seen it. Just like a child picks up a phone and they know how to swipe now. Our grandparents knew how to garden and when to harvest because that's what they saw their, grandparents doing, or their parents.
Yeah. I remember just popping outside, and there was a nonna who was in one of the houses, and I remember just being like, oh, look at your grapes. They're gorgeous. Like, they were over the car patio, and she's just like, yeah. And I was like,
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
Ciao.
Yeah. And it's crazy in such a short period of time how things have changed just from my grandparents to my generation. I mean, I went over to Croatia as a teenager, so I don't think I appreciated it fully. I've been a few times, but I went to my grandfather's village when I was a teenager.
Mm,
And I remember going and just seeing massive bullet holes in all the old stone buildings and houses because, they were at war in the 90s still. They had an independent war. And then we get to the village and, we're all worried about Wi-Fi and, connectivity and whatnot. And they're still churning their own butter still every day. Like there's no shops around. They can't, everything's close. Not like in Australia, we have to drive a long time to get to the next town or let alone next country. We drive and we'd accidentally cross a border. But yeah, and like they're making their own butter and it's just part of their daily life. And it was really interesting to see, but I'd love to go back as an adult and with my kids and to show them these things because we've just, yeah, I mean, there's a big homesteading movement in Australia, but I think it's very different when it's just part of their day and it's not something that they have to learn to do. It's just, yeah, their lifestyle. And I love how they have squares over there and people come together and that's how
mm,
community gather. And there's so many things we can learn from our cultures and cultures around the world that, how we could design towns and cities and how we can live in community. We're so far removed from that at the moment.
yeah. And I do want to emphasize that they were they were hard workers,
Oh, yeah.
and that is like the homesteading movement is very beautiful, and especially online, it's very sexy. It's very like nice music and look at me in my summer dress and how good's
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
But it's tough. It's hard
Totally.
work, and though like I remember my nonno had hands like sandpaper, and my dad used to tell me stories, and he'd watch nonno put lotion on his hands, and it was just like watching two bits of sandpaper, and this lotion would just vanish. And but they were just built from a different ilk. Those people, they were hard workers, and I would be fascinated to see it in action now, and I'm sure it is in action now. But to experience that myself,
Mm.
to see people of my generation participating in that,
Yeah.
because we do have convenience at our door, which is convenience is a pretty brutal thing because usually it's exploits the fact of nature. Nature is not a convenient action. It's
Mm-hmm.
quite methodical and slow when it comes to participating in growing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see us doing that because even like right now, like I'm still very much a creature of convenience. Like I'm drinking a cup of coffee now, and that whole process there, like
Yeah.
it's a lot simpler than what my nonna had to do. And yeah, I'm one day I would love to participate in that and see
Mm.
myself. I welcome the hard work definitely, and I've even with my land, I'm blown away with how much hard work it is. Like
Yeah, totally.
just crazy, and that's an emphasis on people really want large acreage, and they want to, you know, but realistically, a backyard will keep you busy.
Oh,
It
yeah.
definitely will, and no matter
Yeah.
what type of gardening you choose, whether it's you know permaculture, Syntropic, or whatever label you want to pull out of the handbook. At the end of the day, it involves hands in the soil
Yeah.
and it involves your time. And we need to get our time back first to be able to
Mm.
participate in those actions. But
Mm.
it's full on. Yeah.
Yeah. We idealize it a lot online as well. Like, you think about the village houses and they're set up so differently. They're set up to accommodate that. And we've tried to establish that a little bit in our house that we're building so that we have a mud room that's also our storage room and it's going to, have all of our pickles and preserves and things like that. And I think the aesthetic as well was something that we're so caught up on, but in these houses you have, garlic hanging in the kitchen and pumpkins curing on a shelf, and
Mm,
it's messy. It's not all neat and it's not all tidy and it's not aesthetic. It's a messy life, but it's a rich life, I think,
mm.
too. You actually wrote something on Instagram. I might just read it out about
Okay.
my attention, my phone versus my plants. I really loved this, and being conscious of it and cognizant of it, because I think it is a means to an end. And I think it also is a great way of sharing and for people to become more exposed to it, which I love. But it's also that flip side. So you wrote, it's strange to think that on this journey to cultivate the wild, to turn a block of land into a forest, I found myself glued to my screen. Don't get me wrong, I love creating content and seeing other people's projects, but I'd be lying if I said it never makes me feel a bit down. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I can. Obviously, we've heard it all before. Humans were meant to be in groups of 30, or all that kind of stuff, where people,
Mm,
and to see others, living the dream. That's what we were talking about at the start. It's like you already see people who are at their master plan.
yeah,
They're finished, or
the
they're at a
end
point where you
product.
want to be.
Yeah.
And that is why there's such an emphasis in my mind to just be where I am.
Mm,
And because I'm ahead of someone else's journey who's learning,
totally.
seeing
Yeah.
me and probably getting the same feelings, but we're just so busy looking off into the distance that we
Mm,
completely don't look at our own feet and where we're standing. And that's kind of where the phone and my plants were finding a really bad intersect, because I see these people cultivating mangoes and avocados, and I'm not there yet.
mm.
I'm still,
Bits of
picking
grass.
strawberries
Yeah.
and things that are just sprouted, like lettuces and chicory and things like that. I'm still at the ground level. I'm in the herbaceous. My ukes. I mean, I've got a couple of ukes that are a year old, but that's about it in terms of the height. I mean, I have a persimmon tree which was on the land before me. So when it comes to that like we were talking about the macadamia tree, that 7-year project to get to that
Mm,
point,
mm.
you're watching people at that point, but I myself am not at that point. So I need to be like, wow, look at that person cultivating at that point. Look at that amazing thing, and be like, oh, okay, now return to my plants, where I am, my journey, my story. Here it is. And then I get down into my head down, butt up, get in there and start cultivating and
Yeah.
learning my niche, learning my story. And that's kind of where that that whole phone and plants falls apart, is that it just pulls you out of your world. It
Yeah.
pulls you out of your world. And but it takes a mind frame. Like, it's something you have to learn yourself, and you have to, like, I've learned to take my emotions out of my social media, in terms of like being disappointed if people don't like a post, or if someone says something that is like, you know, you're only lucky
Nasty.
because you blah 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 blah.
Oh, yeah.
You're just like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm very adamant. If someone random tells me they don't like me, versus my girlfriend or my best friends tell me I'm doing something silly, very much listen to those people, because they know me.
Mm,
And it's just the same thing. It's just all being on the land, and to participate with the people that you love and the reason why you're doing it. And then you got this phone that pulls you out and
yeah.
makes you do all this other stuff. But then again, the phone can be fantastic. Like, I've seen some amazing projects when I get into the right mindset.
Yeah.
My goodness, these people cultivating syntropic forests in the Mediterranean, and in New Zealand, and just it's so cool, because I'm obsessed with the grass root movement.
Yeah.
I understand the large agricultural, and there's people doing it on broad scales, which is amazing, and there's people built for that. But I'm much more interested in self-reliance of families and
Mm,
urban, and small acreages and what you
Yeah.
can do in those spaces. And those are the people that I want to empower. And if I could get to the point where I just walked around setting forests up for people and giving them a good understanding and a toolbox, and then they can take the tools whatever way they want, that would be the ultimate goal. But as of right now, I need to get off the phone when the time is right, feet on the ground, hands in the soil,
Yeah.
and work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you give somebody who's just starting out on this journey?
On Syntropics or
I
on.
guess just anything, like coming to the land, or that's maybe curious about, gardens and planting and maybe having their own block.
That's a good one. What would I give? I really think it's it's a mindset, and
Mm.
I remember being in Melbourne and just walking around the back streets, and so many of their yards had fruit trees hanging over,
Yes.
and it's just like falling in love with the simple things like that, like plants and things that just it, if you could just go out and walk and see what stories you could create, that drums up motivation, but more so a consistency to want to do something over a long period of time. But something that strums up a bit of a feeling and emotion, and just finding that, whether for me it was starting with permaculture and then seeing this umbrella over here, which was food forest, and then just going crazy, going straight that way, just completely move away, permaculture, I'm going in here. Like just probably not the best approach, but it's just kind of starting, and you never know
Yes.
what road you're going to end up on.
Yeah.
Like you just start with permaculture, or start with gardening, start with
Hmm.
your community gardens, or start with your balcony gardens, or
Yeah.
get on a farm and see how that goes for you.
Yeah.
Just make an action start, which is the
Yeah.
hardest thing, the starting.
Yeah.
Because I'm like that. I've got 50,000 projects, and you just have to start one, and
Yeah.
then you can, and then you might get halfway down that project and be like, oh, it makes more sense to be doing that project. And
Mm.
then it actually ends up kind of all linking.
Yeah.
Hopefully that makes sense to someone.
It does. And I
Yeah.
think also it's like removing those labels. I approach people to come on the podcast and they go, "Oh, I don't practice permaculture." And I'm like, "That's cool because I think everybody actually practices permaculture or some kind of different thing. Like you could apply labels to anything, but for me, like permaculture is about caring
Mm.
and it's
Yeah.
about observing. Like I don't necessarily practice permaculture for the garden side of things. Like I love gardening, but there's so much more. And so I think getting rid of those labels as well and not having to, like you said, decide on a path and being able to change your mind and to be able to take in different knowledge, I think is a wonderful way of looking at it, and to not like you said earlier, not have an end goal necessarily, but to just be a part of that process is such
Mm.
a beautiful, lovely thing.
And unfortunately, as soon as something gets a name, it starts to get labels, and starts to get you have to do this, or you have to do this, or.
Totally.
But when you kind of just walk into a space and you just decide that, nah, I'm going to take something from there and there and there, and don't specifically give yourself a crazy niche, it's
Mm-hmm.
really nice, because
Yeah.
you could be like, yeah, I'm doing a bit of permaculture. I'm also doing a little bit of syntropic. I'm also doing a little bit of this and that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just have fun with it, because at the end of the day, it's your
Yeah.
journey. It's
Yeah.
just, and as long as you're not, I mean, it's pretty hard to harm people when you're just growing food, but as long as you're not hurting anyone,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. And most gardeners understand that it's this beautiful, prolific system, and no matter
Mm.
what approach you take, there's something for everyone.
Totally. Thank you so much for your time and taking time out of your day to chat with me. I so appreciate it. And I know that lots of people are going to get a lot out of this chat. I actually had a listener tell me to interview you. That's why I reached out.
True.
Yes, true
Wild.
story. Yeah, she tagged me. She sent me a little thing saying you need to interview this guy. So that's why I reached out to chat to you.
Wild. Well, thank you
Yeah,
so much for
yeah.
having me.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to connect with you, I'll put all of your links in our show notes so they can get in touch and watch what you're up to.
Thank you so much. Cheers.